I married my childhood sweetheart, but he cheated, so I found love again with a man who rarely said I love you. I am using a different account so that my husband doesn't know. Before meeting my current husband, I was married to my ex-husband, Dave. Dave and I met when we were 5 years old. He moved into our neighborhood when he was 5. He was this cute boy next door, and we became inseparable. Even our parents joked that when we would be adults, we would be married. Ever since I knew the concept of marriage, I was determined that I would marry Dave. We were like soulmates, we had the same interests, the same hobbies, and similar thoughts. He was my first everything, my first kiss, my first boyfriend, the guy I lost my virginity to. Among our friends, we were the perfect couple. After graduating high school, we immediately got married. I got into a good school, but I decided to study with Dave. We got married right after we finished high school, and our parents helped us find an apartment closer to our school. We worked hard, and we would often talk about having kids. On our 6th anniversary, we decided that we would try for a baby next year. During our 7th year of marriage, my mom got sick, so I had to stay with her for a while. I was planning to do something special for our 7th year anniversary, so I left early to surprise him. I went to my bedroom and there I saw my husband with another girl in our marital bed. I can never get that image out of my head. My husband saw me, and his face turned pale. I don't know what happened, but I threw up right on the spot. My husband was giving me the usual "it's not what it looks like, I am sorry, it was a mistake." I locked myself in the bathroom and called my friend to pick me up. Eventually, my parents knew, and they supported me on whatever decision I would make. Dave's parents, however, wanted us to be together. There was a huge fight, but eventually, we settled for divorce. My whole fairy tale fantasy just shattered. I was spiraling into depression, and my parents booked me a therapy for 2 years. After that, my friend pushed me to go on a date. I did, but no one even came close to Dave. I was searching for Dave in every guy, but they all failed to live up to the expectation. That's when I met my now husband, Jay. Jay was the opposite of Dave. Dave was funny and the life of the party, but Jay was not funny like Dave. He would use humor only as clapbacks and if he wants to insult someone. He was also very stoic and closed off, pretty boring to my taste. On our first date, I asked him some questions, but he didn't even ask me a thing except for my educational background. We ate dinner in silence. Later, he did ask me out on a second date. I was skeptical, but my friend insisted. The second date went slightly better than the first. He talked a bit more, asked a few questions, and we were taking it slow. He was opening up until the 6th date when he finally hooked up. It was amazing, and I was craving for some food, so I asked him if I could grab something from his pantry. He told me to stay there and he went out. He came back after 20 minutes with takeout food, something I really liked. That's when I knew, even if he was not my soulmate, I was madly in love with him. We dated for 3 years and got married. I came to know about Jay's family too. His mom and dad were drug addicts who died of overdose. He was homeless for a while but worked his way up. Throughout our marriage, I was very happy. He was different from Dave because whenever he would see me doing chores, he would ask if I need help. He helped me through my trauma from Dave by arranging a therapist that specializes in infidelity. He may not be a person of words, but his actions tell me that he loves me. When I was pregnant with our daughter, I would wake him up in the middle of the night to either get me food or rub my feet, and he would say yes, ma'am, and get to work. I love him even after 15 years of marriage, and my love has not stopped. He is still the stoic man I fell in love with. After meeting him, I stopped believing in the concept of a soulmate. He was not mine, but we somehow make it work. As for Dave, he is getting his 3rd divorce. His mom blames me for his downfall, but she refuses to see that her son cheated on his every marriage. Jay and I don't look like your typical soulmates. Honestly, Dave and I seem like the ideal couple, your typical girl next door and boy next door kind of people. Jay, on the other hand, was a bit more closed off, and when I first started dating him, I actually thought he was kind of rude. He has a temper, especially when it comes to people who mess things up, but beyond that, he's a genuinely kind person, especially to those who really need help. Despite his rough edges, there's a goodness in him that runs deep. In terms of our relationship, it's been 18 years, and let's just say that the physical aspect is still alive and well. Jay's the kind of guy who keeps things spicy, and yes, even after all these years, he still surprises me with dessert after. It's the little things, you know. But of course, not everyone has been supportive of us, especially not Dave's mom. She blames me for his downfall, and she even tried to convince me to stay, knowing full well about his cheating, claiming I could have fixed him. It's absurd. She blames me for his marriage after me failing, saying he was a mess because of me, not because he was sleeping around behind their backs too. As for Jay, I wouldn't call him my soulmate. He doesn't even believe in soulmates. When I asked him about it once, he told me he thought the idea was crap, like horoscopes, something people believe in because it makes them feel better. He even thinks that a lot of good relationships get ruined because people are chasing the idea of a perfect soulmate. I was a little devastated when he said that, but that's Jay, always practical. In these 18 years, we've only said I love you maybe 5 times. I've always wanted to say it more, but that's not really how we operate. Still, even without all the romantic fluff, there's something real between us, and that's enough for me. Update 1. My husband, 47M, and I, 46F, have been together for 18 years and married for 15. My husband is not the type who always shows his feelings. He is very stoic, smiles on very few occasions, and maintains a routine. Some even say that he is a robot, but I don't think so. I am someone who is very outgoing and completely the opposite of him. Before I was married to him, I was married to someone else who cheated on me. I used to say I love you a lot in my first marriage, but after my divorce, I had some sort of aversion to those words. Over the last 18 years, we have said I love you only 5 times. The first time was when we were dating, the second was on our wedding day, the third and fourth when our daughter and son were born, and the fifth was 5 years ago on Christmas when we were really tipsy because of the drinks. I wrote a post about how I met him and how we got together, but it made me realize that we haven't said I love you to each other for a long time. But it didn't bother me even if he never said it. He always shows that he loves me through his actions. He does chores for me, would always give me a foot massage, make me my favorite dish, and even kiss me out of the blue. I do not have any complaints. He is the best husband anyone could ever ask for. However, this was something that has been in the back of my mind for a while. We cuddle, we hang out, we make love, but I would love to hear I love you and say it more often. I decided to buckle up and just say it. Yesterday, when he was reading a book on the couch, I stood in front of him and said, I love you. He looked at me and was confused. I repeated it, and for the first time, I could see him get flustered. He told me okay. Later that night, when I was lying down, he came to our bedroom and told me that he is sorry for his response, that it caught him off guard. He told me that he loves me a lot and not even a day goes by he doesn't feel lucky to have me in his life. I was staring up, and that was better than my confession. I asked him why we don't say it often, and he told me that he doesn't say it because throughout his entire life, no one has said it to him except for me. His parents were drug addicts who cared less for him, and he had to start working since 14. He grew up in hardship, so saying I love you is weird for him, but he also feels like we didn't have to tell each other when we express it with our actions way more. I told him I want to say it more now and want him to say it back if that's okay with him. I saw him smile for a while, and he said it is fine as long as I want it. He said we will probably stop saying it after a few days and go back to our mundane events. Update 2. A lot of you people have been asking me and personally messaging me about Jay's upbringing and how he managed to survive. Well, I am not sure if I am the right person to talk about his personal life. I mean, I heard some parts which really made me cry. Therefore, I will try to summarize it. My husband, Jay, is an only child. His mom and dad were from a poor family, and they were drug addicts. His household was a mess. He remembers his father pushing him down the stairs when he was like 8. Jay mostly grew up with his grandfather, his mom's dad. As far as I know, his mom was not allowed to come to his grandfather's house. Jay mostly spent his weekdays at his house, as his mom and dad didn't care. They were always high and had odd visitors. His grandfather taught him a lot of things, like handling tools, woodwork, and electric repair stuff, ever since he was little. With some advice from his grandfather, he learned that his parents are very useless, and he has to survive on his own. All they know is how to do drugs and invite people for having group sex. He started doing odd jobs like dog sitting, car and window washing, gardening, and tutoring from time to time. Shortly after his parents died of overdose, he became a permanent resident of his grandfather's house. He worked so that he could afford to go to college. His grandfather had little money for him, but it wasn't enough. He thought about joining the army at 18, but he failed the physical test. When he was 17, his grandfather died of a heart attack. His grandfather lived in a rented house, so Jay couldn't live there anymore. He was forced to live in a homeless shelter throughout his high school. He even got bullied and got in trouble for standing up for his bullies, but since he was a good student, he didn't face serious repercussions. He left the homeless shelter when a pastor from their local church took him in. The pastor knew Jay because he worked in the church for a while. The pastor was a nice guy, he funded his living and also helped him get a scholarship to a good university. Jay studied finance and business. His entire childhood, he lived in poverty, so he was obsessed with learning how to make money. He made some connections which landed him a good part-time job during his final year. I met Jay through my friend, who worked in the same company as him. He worked as an investment banker at that time, and the rest you all know. This is pretty much it. I understand why he is so stoic and doesn't show his emotions. I once asked out of curiosity that he saw the harsh reality of life, but still, how does he manage to stay good? He once told me about this couple whose children he used to tutor. They were a really happy family in his eyes, and the husband loved his wife. He mentioned that the husband would always have a hand on his wife's body as a form of affection. Their children were also well behaved and had a good childhood. From that moment, he knew he wanted a family like that because he never had a complete family, but he was sure that somebody would not be able to love him because he doesn't know how to show love. Throughout his entire childhood, he has only seen his parents fight and cheat on each other in front of each other. That really destroyed his perception of love. If it wasn't for that couple, he probably wouldn't believe that there are people in this world who can love each other for life. It is a little wrong of me to say he displays no emotions. He does, but on rare occasions. I remember the day our daughter was born, Jay held her and cried loudly. He kept repeating, I will protect you. I will never leave you. He did say I love you to both me and her. The same thing happened when our son was born. I know he does love me and our little family. He always holds me tight whenever we are cuddling. He is really good with my parents, and my parents also adore him. Sometimes it just makes me cry, knowing that he has been through a lot, and I have lived such a sheltered life. Sometimes I feel like I don't deserve him because he is very kind and a good person. Update 3. I just wanted to give big thanks to everyone for who has been kind and supportive. I cannot imagine that so many people will come through because of my post. A lot of you suggested therapy. TBH, I did in the past, but my husband brushed it off by saying his past rarely bothers him. Thanks to people, I suggested him some articles on PTSD and childhood trauma. He studied for a bit and found a therapist for him to help him with his trauma. He only had 2 sessions till now. A few days ago, he came home from work, and I went to greet him like usual. He pulled in for a big hug and started sobbing. I told him it's okay, and we went to our bedroom, where we sat down and talked. He told me that he was sorry for being so ice cold all these years. He opened up more and said he was afraid to confront his demons, so he just kept them back in his head. He had trouble expressing how he felt, and he felt guilty that he didn't say I love you more often. He said, I love you with all my heart. I know I don't say it, but I feel it every day and every moment. I'm sorry for taking away all those years from you, for not expressing my love for you. Words cannot express what you actually mean to me. You gave me my kids, made my house a home. I never had that growing up. I always wanted that, and you made it happen. I'm sorry that I was so cold and never said I love you more, because I do. I love you a lot. I want to make it up to you. I don't want to waste another second of my life burying those emotions anymore. It felt good to see him vulnerable for the first time in his life. I cried with him that night. We talked a lot about our marriage and the times we spent. It was a real bonding experience. From that day on, he has been really attentive towards me. He would always come home as early as possible to simply have more time with me. We cuddle a lot and also make love, except this time, it feels new and different, like a newfound love. He has been saying I love you to my kids. My son is confused, and my daughter just said, Dad, you are weird. He is thinking about planning a trip for just the 2 of us because it has been really long since we had gone on a trip alone. So, thanks, folks. You gave me a new version of my husband and probably strengthened my marriage with him. Not that there were problems, but I hope my husband would not be so haunted by his demons.